Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We're your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble. Today, we are thrilled to be chatting with Rachel Varitimos. Rachel leads in-person transformative retreats for growth-seeking women. She helps women unlock their potential through these retreats and through human design readings. Rachel has hosted a Goddess Getaway retreat in the middle of COVID. During a time when we were being told to shut ourselves away, she was encouraging in-person community. Rachel is no stranger to going against the status quo and charting her own course. And Rachel, we're super grateful to have you on our podcast today.
Thanks. I am super grateful to be here. I love you guys.
So, you've been traveling the world this past year, and I believe more than you have really before anyway. And you've been hanging out in pirate communities when traveling. So will you spin us a tale about what led you on your own pirate journey?
What led me on my journey of traveling and meeting all you pirates?
Or what led you to where you are today with your entrepreneur, all of the things that you do?
Oh, wow. That can be a very long story, so I'll try to make it concise. Well, I'll start by saying my whole life, my strongest desire was to have my own business and to make an impact on the world and have something that I'm proud of. So as young as like 5 years old, I had multiple businesses I started. I used to sell jelly beans. I'd walk up and down the street, knock on everyone's door, trying to sell jelly beans. Funny story. I would never collect enough money to actually give them jelly beans because I didn't understand math, obviously, yet at that age. And so I would get this money and then realize I don't have enough jelly beans. So that was not the best business. And I also created this random library when I was younger. I teamed up with my neighbor and we piled our books together and labeled them all by alphabetical order. I'm like, we're going to have a library and everyone on our street's going to come to it. And obviously at 5, that doesn't actually happen when you compile all your books. So it started when I was 5. I wanted a business so badly. I knew I wanted it my whole life. When I was 9 years old, I was considered clinically obese and I didn't hang out with anybody. I was super socially anxious, really shy, didn't have any friends, and I would closet eat. And I thought that the reason I didn't have any friends was because I was obese. And so one day my parents had this stack of video cassette tapes for a bunch of summer camps, like sleepaway camps. And I started putting them in because I was bored, I think. And I found this weight loss camp, sleepaway camp. And they said, if you go for 6 weeks, you'll lose 20 pounds. So I begged my parents to let me go. So I guess that was the first pirate thing I've ever done, was at 9, beg my parents to let me go away for 6 weeks, far away from home, so I could lose weight and be like the other kids. And so I went to sleepaway camp for 6 weeks, lost 23 pounds. And I did make some friends there, but it was because it was just other overweight kids like me that I could relate with. So I think that's why it was so easy to make friends with them. And like I said, I lost 23 pounds in 6 weeks. I went above what they said you could do, but I didn't do it healthfully. I wasn't really eating, so I was a picky eater. And so what that taught me was, if I don't eat very much for the next however long, then I'll be thin and I'll be able to have friends. And so when I came back from weight loss camp, it was my mission to stay thin. And so that kickstarted a really maybe 16 to 18 year journey of yo-yo dieting, being obsessed with nutrition in my body. I would from 9 after camp, I would go online, like constantly researching things. I remember all of middle school, all of high school, staying up till 3 a.m. and looking up different diets, looking up different things. And I was convinced by the time I went to college that I was going to be a nutritionist and I was going to help other kids lose weight too, so that they could have friends. Because I thought that that was my story, was that I lost weight and got friends. So I got my degree in nutrition and dietetics in college. And towards the end of it, when you do something for that long, like since you were 9 till you're like 21, you get exhausted with the life you're living. You get exhausted with constantly thinking about food, constantly making it your life. And so I remember I just like hit this rock bottom where after learning about nutrition and dietetics, there were so many different studies. It felt like it was ever evolving and changing. And I realized, why do I spend so much time researching this? Like I'm spending so much time in my head, it's exhausting me and I'm not getting anywhere sustainable. And so finally said F it, and I stopped thinking about it. I stopped thinking about what diet I should be on. I stopped thinking about researching it, and I just started eating healthy whole foods, like went back to basics, basically. Would eat veggies, eat fruits, eat whole grains, eat meat, like eat whatever my body was craving. And it was from finally just not being able to think about it anymore, but wanting to just like feel okay, that I started feeling how I would feel when I would eat certain foods. And instead of thinking about things, I started feeling things. And eventually, over the course of like a couple years of me doing that, I considered myself an intuitive eater. Like I had a completely different mindset when it came to food. And because I realized it wasn't about what I researched, it wasn't about me obsessing over it in my head, it was about imagining myself eating something and like trying it on before I'd eat it and see how it would feel. And it became this bodily game, and that kickstarted like so much more transformation for me. It kickstarted me building my mind-body connection. And it also, I got way more into cannabis at that time. I tend to get obsessed about things, as clearly because I was obsessed with nutrition for that long, I can get obsessed with other things too. So I got into cannabis after college, which is like a really weird transition, but that's my second pirate transition, was I became an intuitive eater, got into the cannabis industry because I started growing cannabis because it helped me sleep. And I thought it was so fun and I loved it. And then I was like, this is going to be the business I start. I thought the first thing was going to be nutrition. No, that's not how I'm going to change the world. It's cannabis. So I go super into cannabis, learn everything about it, just like I did with nutrition. And I started writing applications. Like as I was making more and more money, I became a manager. And I started writing applications for other dispensaries around the country to open up their own dispensaries. That was miserable. It was so miserable. I wasn't helping anyone. I was just helping corporate companies get something so they can make money. And that didn't sit right in my body either. I originally got into cannabis because I wanted to help people because it helped me. So that was the second thing I went into that I thought was me paving my own path, me starting my own business. And then I knew I needed to leave cannabis. My last year of cannabis, I was sleeping an hour to 4 hours a night. And I just knew something was going to get me out of it. And then COVID happened. And at that, let me also backtrack. You know how I said I started nutrition was because I didn't have a lot of friends. Social anxiety was still something that I dealt with even after losing weight. Like I'd have some friends, but social anxiety was the next biggest hurdle I really had to heal through. And so COVID happened and I felt really alone. I didn't really resonate with people in cannabis. I didn't really resonate with anyone. And I decided to furlough from my job and they treated me very well. Like luckily I got paid for 3 months and then I got to collect unemployment. And throughout that time, you know what happened? Ryan took and lifted one and with Mark England, and Ryan like had a life-changing experience and he's like, you should do it, Rachel. And so clearly like my whole thing is I want to have my own thing to help people. So I was like, well, I'll try going into Enlifted and try coaching. And I went through it. It was life-changing. And then through it, I met you, Chris. Well, I met you, Kristen, because Ryan was going to a retreat with other Enlifted people, the same place you were having a retreat. So you then I went to a women's retreat in October, like in the beginning of me kickstarting traveling, which was spurred from this whole, us doing this group coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of social anxiety, like I said, and that first retreat with a bunch of women, because usually I've always been way more comfortable around men than women, is what like broke me open to like start healing my social anxiety. And then I just started, as you said, like I've traveled so much, I just went on constant retreats, and they transform me faster than anything I had ever done. And as you know, like I've been like really into bettering myself since I was 9. So yeah, then I just got inspired. I was coaching intuitive eating, so I thought that's like what I should do because it's what I knew the most about. But then retreats became like the life-changing thing for me. So I decided to run my first retreat and involve every single thing that I knew that helped me. And that's why intuitive eating is a big part of the retreat. It's not the main focus, but I took bits and pieces from each retreat and made it my own. And I even took like the things I learned from story work and flipped it into a manifestation practice and taught that as well. So that was a really long story, but I hope that answers the long transition I had to do paving my own path.
Mm-hmm. It was a great transition into everything. And actually, I remember too, Karan and I were doing Enlifted Level 2 with Ryan. And I remember when Mark told Ryan that you got on the phone with him. He did it on one of our weekly calls. So I remember getting to hear about that moment.
You want to know what's synchronistic about this whole thing? 2 years ago, when we were, maybe 3 years ago now, when me and Ryan were in cannabis, I remember we were both working in the grow one day, because that's how Ryan and I met, was at the dispensary. And we were listening to a podcast on Positive Head, and Mark England was on it. And I remember we listened to it, and after we were both like, that was awesome. We got to meet this guy. And we like had this intention like 3 years ago to meet him. And so the fact that we now know him, and this is all, it's all very full circle.
That is.
So what kind of work are you doing? Or I want to know more about the human design readings, because I don't know anything about human design.
Okay, so human design, I got super into because I believe it gives people the framework of who they are so they can give themselves more permission to be themselves. And actually, the way I came across human design was the way, if you were following your human design profile, which mine is a manifesting generator, is like the way I found human design. And I'll explain that in a second. So when me and Ryan went on one of our trips, we were in California, and we went to the spiritual store, and Ryan found this human design book, and he started reading it, and he was like, this is amazing. It literally describes me to a T, down to like the minutest details. And so I was like, let me read that. So I started reading it for 2 hours, became obsessed with it, started asking everyone and their mother if I could read their chart. I was like, can I read your chart? I have this book. I can like help you. I can like help you figure this out and that. And every single person that I read it to was like, oh my God, that's exactly me. And oh my God, I'm going to embrace that side of me more. And like, I thought that was me, but someone told me that wasn't me. So I'm like not doing that. And what it really helped do is like break down any stories someone might have had that are preventing them from being themselves, even though deep down they know that's who they are. And so like one of the things in human design that's super helpful is it teaches each person their decision-making strategy, like what the best way for them in particular is to like make decisions, and also like what voice to listen to. So like I said, the reason the way I found human design was in line with my profile was because I'm a manifesting generator, and our strategy in order to move through life is to respond to things. So that could be responding to someone being like, hey, Rachel, can you help me with intuitive eating? And then I check in with my gut response. And if I feel like a yes, I say yes. If it feels like a no, I say no. Ryan got the human design book, and what I was doing was responding to him seeing this human design book and me being like, I want to try this. And that's how I brought it into my life. Responding is different than if you're a manifester, for example, which is only 11% of the population, they don't respond. They're the one who comes up with the idea and tells everyone. It's like it's comes through inspired action as opposed to seeing something. So that's what's cool about human design is everyone has a different energy type and they all have a different strategy of how, if they move through life in this way, their life's going to flow better. But it also teaches each person what voice to listen to and how to make decisions. Like I said, mine's a gut response. Mm-hmm. Some people are emotional decision makers, and their thing is to sleep on the decisions that they make. It's to wait until they're in an emotionally calm space so they're not making decisions when they're really down or really happy. There's some people who are splenic inner authority, which they'd have a really fast, like quick intuition, because the spleen is like instincts. It's like primal instincts. So typically when someone has that decision-making inner authority, it's like, take the first thing that comes in your head and go with that. Some people are heart. If this is a manifestor inner authority, but if you're a manifestor and you're a heart inner authority, anything that you want, anything that you desire is what you should go forward. So those are like why human design can be so cool, because it can help you find more clarity on how to move forward with things and when to.
Yeah, it's cool. Like I said, I didn't know much about human design at all. So thank you for clarifying that. So with the work that you're doing with your retreats, with human design readings, what is the social rebellion that you're looking to start, or have you started?
I would say my social rebellion is more so is almost opposite. It's like socially bringing together, where I believe for so long, a lot of us believe that we have to be competitive, that there's not room for everyone. But what I've realized through going to retreats is that the more you expand your network, the more you connect with other people, the more abundance is brought into your life. Mm-hmm. And so my dream is to create a wide network of people so that we can all together cultivate abundance, because we're not only supporting each other on our dreams, but when you are hearing about someone else's dream, you have them in mind. It's almost like this energetic connection between you two. And then when you're out in the world, if you find someone that should connect with this person, that connection is made, mm-hmm. If that makes sense. So my long-term goal is to live in a commune with all my friends, and us all live together and we all share responsibilities. Because I truly believe that everyone's a piece to the puzzle. And I also believe that we're moving into this tribal time in our lives where, back hundreds of years ago, we were all in small townships and small tribes, and things worked well because everyone was in agreement. It was just an easier way to manage things. And I almost see us moving towards that right now. And I would love to be the beginning of that social structure of people really getting, it's not about clicks, mm-hmm. It's about support. And if someone wants to be led into a tribe, it's just about that energy resonating. And I believe everyone's energy is going to fit into one tribe or another.
Yeah, I love that. I send Kristen properties for our commune once a month. I'm like, we could sell everything right now and move to this old schoolhouse and live on 22 acres.
And where are these places?
They're usually either in Sweden or Norway. Yes, they're cooler countries because I don't like the heat.
Are you Swedish?
No, I'm actually born in Bermuda. And no one's from Bermuda, right? There was no one there. It was uninhabited when we colonized it or settled it. So doing some historical, digging and DNA testing, like the 23andMe and Ancestry, and finding where genetically I'm from, because I had no clue. We've had this discussion before about what is my heritage? What are my traditions? What are my, what is my past? Just not knowing. That was the easiest way for me to at least start that digging. Because I do feel what you say really resonates, and with the idea of, like I said, where do we belong? right? And I think a lot of people are going through life cut off from their traditions and are really solitary and not having that connection with community or feeling like they belong. And, so having a way to get back to that connection and community is huge, is really important, I believe, as well, in our society these days, for the betterment of like people and the environment and everything. If we can get back to that connected community vibes, I think that's just going to be better for everybody. So yeah.
I totally agree. Like, I know there's there's TED Talks on this, like tons of studies on this, that, I mean, nowadays people are more alone than ever because of social media. It makes it easier to hide behind your computer screen. And it's almost like addictive to do it in that way, because people think that they can put this protection layer up, like no one can get me. And I almost think that them practicing putting that protection on throughout social media then translates to their real life, and then they stop being able to actually socialize with people in a way that's really meaningful and deep, that because that can actually transform you. Because I truly believe that the way to transform is, yes, through your own experiences and trying new things, but it's also through relationships with other people, because there's only so much you can do on your own. And like I said, it creates this abundance of learning. And it's also just really healing for mental health. There's a reason there's a high rates of anxiety and depression and all of that these days. So yeah.
Well, and that's even what drew, I know, for me personally, to doing this podcast, is we get to have conversations every week with really cool people that we wouldn't have met otherwise, and have an actual conversation and hearing people out and listening to different point of views and learning from people. I think it's a great start for building those connections and communities.
100%. I totally agree. We're in the age of Aquarius, they say, in astrology. It's all about community building.
Good to know too. And let's communities pirate as well, because within the like pirate world, they needed to build those communities, whether or not like ship by ship they were all getting along with each other. That community is more than that. It's having a common goal in mind. And yeah, and I lost my train of thought, but yeah, it's having that common goal more than it really is like getting along to. And with that, writing a pirate code to create that common goal. Which, if thinking of community, have you started thinking about what your pirate code around community is?
My pirate code. Can you define what a pirate code would be?
Pirate code. Karan's thinking. Do you have a good idea on it?
So yeah, it's just sort of using the analogy of your compass, of what guides you in terms of community, rather than a map. So it's not your set of like strict rules, but what guides you in terms of connection and community.
Oh, okay. I got you guys. So with my retreat, I have an application form, and the reason is because I know what community like I want to be guided towards and what community I want to cultivate. And so the community that I want to cultivate is a community of women, and it could be men too, but my retreats are just women who are into self-growth and really about bettering themselves and all about getting to the next level. And the reason I say that is because for so long, I realize this now, the reason I felt like I was socially anxious, didn't have a lot of friends, was not because I was not good at making friends. It was because there are so many people in this world who don't care about bettering themselves on the same level as some other people do. Like there's some people who are, and this is totally fine. It's like this is not a problem, but some people are fine with the white picket fence, getting married at whatever young age, having this many kids, having the dog, working the corporate job. Like some people, like that's what the life they want to live. And that was a lot of my friends growing up. And I always talked about having a business and like I'm meditating and like working really hard on myself. And like I remember my roommate in college, she tells me this now to this day. She's like, I was the healthiest ever when I lived with you because I would eat well with you, we would work out together, and it felt so good. And yeah, that was amazing that I helped her do that. But I realized the reason I think it took me so long to grow was because I was hanging out with people who didn't care as much about growing. It's like I was the one who was inspiring them. And so the community I want to build is people who all want to better themselves and who all are so passionate about their own thing that we inspire one another and we can learn from one another. And that's what I really loved about the Enlifted community was it was the first time I met a community of people who were truly in line with the things I had talked about my whole life. And I always thought that I was just weird or something. And I don't know. It was like this huge disconnect. I don't know if you guys ever found this with people where it's just so hard to find people who like really want to do big things, which still I don't understand, but it's like I said, it's totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard sometimes it can be hard to find like-minded people that are dedicated to growth. Some people, their idea of growth, maybe just getting a promotion in that corporate job, and that's great. And they work hard for that. And that's what they want. It's climbing the ladder in the Navy, right? Versus like being a pirate and charting your own course. And there's a reason why, there's probably more people in the Navy than there were pirates, right? Because it's not for everybody. But to find those communities and to build those pirate crews is really important to continue to inspire and grow beyond what you've already done.
That's such a good analogy, like such a good way of putting that it really is this like Navy, because it's not that they didn't want to better themselves, it was that they didn't I wanted to do this unique path. And when you're alone trying to do this unique path and like you don't know anyone else has done it, it's like jumping into the deep side of the ocean and being like, well, I have this plan. Hopefully a raft finds me. I don't see any other boats around. So, but yeah, it's a lot like that, where that probably is why there was way less pirate communities, because there is an element of bravery and courage to it too. I'm realizing as you're saying that.
Yeah, definitely. We talk a lot about bravery and courage. And one of the things that comes along with bravery and courage is taking bold actions to get where you are. So what are some of the small, bold actions that you've been taking to get where you are today?
I kind of explained it in my first thing too. I'm pretty good at like having really strong, take out the pretty. I'm really good at having really strong motivations and expectations. I like being like, this is it. And like going all in and then letting go and pivoting. So I did that in cannabis. I did that after college with nutrition. And I would say my most recent biggest one was when I planned my first retreat. It was so last minute. I was actually at Mark England's house, and this is kind of weird. I never really was into psychics before this, but I met this psychic who, something she said made me believe that I could run a retreat, even though she didn't say anything about me running retreats. I just took what she said and decided I can run retreats. And so the first bold action I took, I put a lot of money down on this house. I had no idea how I was going to fill the retreat. I didn't really know what was going to happen. And literally the day after I talked to her, I had this place pop into my head, Asheville, North Carolina. I had never been there, but looked there on Airbnb, found a perfect place, spent a ton of money on it. And I was like, oh shoot, now I got to fill this. And then I filled it in 3 weeks. Like literally in 3 weeks, I had everything planned, filled, done. And then I had the retreat a few months later. So
wow.
It was a very bold move, but honestly, that was like it proved to me that I can really trust my intuition, even more so than I knew I could before.
And some psychics.
Yeah.
And psychics. Even though the psychic is probably like, I didn't tell you to do this, but okay.
Not what I said, but cool. Go with it.
Well, we all have our own interpretations.
When will you give us a background? How was the Goddess Getaway? What did you do? Yeah, give us some information about it.
So I literally took every little piece of thing I had done over my transformative journey over years and decided to put it all into my retreat. So the goal of my retreat, I called it my holistic Disneyland, where I wanted everyone to experience what it would feel like if they were doing all of the things that all the things that make up a holistic healing experience: eating well, moving your body, doing inner work, connecting with others, being mindful and present in like nature, manifesting, doing journaling work. And so I compiled it all by first, the way I manifested my retreat. I think I told you guys, I kind of took story work, but turned it opposite, where I made it into like manifestation work. So I manifested the retreat, writing about the retreat as if it already happened in past tense. So that was part of the retreat, as well as I taught people the manifestation process. I had everyone write about it in past tense, whatever they were manifesting. And then I 4-stepped that past tense manifestation, where we all read it to each other every day. So part of it was embodiment. And by the 4th day, everyone felt it, because as we know, when we breathe and we read something out loud, you feel it. And when you feel it, you can start to embody it. And that's how you start making the action steps. So part of it was manifestation. Part of it was, I had Kim Kesting, who is also an Enlifted coach, health coach. When I was at Mark's house one time, she made the most delicious spreads and food. So I was like, you're my chef. And I was like, we're going to cook really healthy, nutritious meals all day. And she killed it. Because me and her were on the same page with food. She's like into intuitive eating, but eating like lots of whole foods. And we had the best food. There's like a bunch of different options for everyone, because I had an intuitive eating aspect. We did sit down intentional dinners where we ate slowly, mindfully. I talked about people feeling the food through. I had my yoga teacher friend there. My friend, who is an amazing yoga teacher. She has her own, she's an online tarot, yoga, and astrology coach, and she taught yoga in Boston for 10 years. And so she taught yoga every day and ran meditations. And she also did a journey dance. She does journey dancing too. So we took people on a journey dance, which is basically like a journey with your body to feel through emotions and things like that. I had my friend who's a Reiki master was there and did Reiki sessions on people. Jody was there. Everyone got a bodywork session. She gave everyone like an hour work bodywork session, because I believe bodywork is not a luxury. I believe it's a necessity that helps get you into your body, because when someone is massaging your body, you have no choice but to pay attention to where they're touching. And it's a really great tool to get out of your head and into your body. So yoga, healthy food, body work, Reiki, manifestation. And then I like added a bunch of other things on too. So I don't know if you've ever done one of Ryan's cannabis ceremonies. My boyfriend runs cannabis ceremonies, but he takes people through a journey. So I decided I was going to take people through a journey. So the first day was called Gratitude Day. And we did a cacao ceremony to open hearts. I wanted everyone to get comfortable around each other, because I believe that in order to heal, you have to be really comfortable and feel like you're safe. You have to prime safety. How are you supposed to like heal if you don't feel safe to do so and like let your guard down? So we did a cacao ceremony to connect hearts. We did a connection circle and shared, and that was like huge. Everyone got super close after that. And that each day that I had a theme, so like that day during yoga, the theme was heart opening. It was connection. It was gratitude. And I had everyone think all day about what they were grateful for. And we also shared at the end of the day about gratitude. The next day was strength day. I had everyone start thinking about a time in their life when things were really hard, but they pulled through and they felt really strong because of it. And I gave everyone, I made a group walkout song like we do in Lifted. And it was this song called Good. And it's basically this like 6-minute song that's a speech song. And he's talking about this guy who has this boss, and he's like, anytime anything bad happens, what do we say? Good. So then literally it just became this thing all weekend where everyone was like, that happened? Good. And everyone was saying good anytime anything bad happened. We went on a hike that day. We did a self-defense lesson. So it was all about strength. The next day was Inner Wisdom Day. I wanted people to really connect with their bodies, connect with nature. We did a psilocybin journey. Very small, very microdosed. But I had everyone start on their own for most of it. And then I said, you can come back together towards the end and start hanging out. And some people came back and hung out. Some people had the most amazing days on their own, and everyone connected with nature and themselves so deeply. It was exactly what I had planned. So we went from gratitude to strength to inner wisdom. And the last day was Integration Day, where we all shared our experiences. The last part of manifestation, we had a fire, and like we shared the transformation that we had. So that was basically everything we did, the holistic Disneyland.
That sounds amazing.
It was so fun. I'm like trying to think if I forgot anything. I did have some mishaps where I thought I lost my keys and I got my car towed like an hour away. Turns out, and then I rented this whole house. Turns out my keys were in my bag after I got my car towed. So,
and you said what happened? Good.
I said good. So that was it. That's like it fueled into this. I was like, all right, this is good. So yeah, that was it. It was, like I said, it was me taking like literally everything that had healed me and rolling it into a 5-day retreat.
Nice. When you're working with people, with women, to start their own personal rebellion or their own transformation, what is the most uncomfortable question that you can ask yourself to get that started? Or what is an uncomfortable question that you can ask yourself to start your own transformation?
An uncomfortable question.
Or what uncomfortable questions did you ask yourself to start your transformation?
Well, this is a question that I would have someone ask after the courses of us working together, because one of the main things I teach people when working with me is to learn to listen to the feelings versus what's in your head. So what I mean by that, and I'll give an example for how I'm planning the second one. I'm doing another retreat in Sedona. The house is 4 times more expensive than the last house I rented. So it was even bigger of a risk. I have to fill more spots. And I was terrified. And all my head is coming up with all these stories. It was like, this is only like your second retreat. You probably shouldn't be spending that much money on a house. Like, how are you going to fill this all? Like, blah, blah, all these stories in my head. And I was like, okay, stop. What does my body feel like when I think of renting this house? Does it want to run, or does it feel at peace? Does it feel expansive? My body felt so in peace and expansive. It was just my mind that was freaking out. And so I always ask myself, what is my body saying? Because my body gives me the true answer, whereas my head will literally tell me all the stories as to why I can't do that. So I would say that's like the scariest question to actually ask myself and then believe it. Like, what does my body feel? I think so many people aren't willing to ask themselves that because it's like scary to check in with your body.
Well, definitely. And even going back to the nutrition side, like we do so much now to numb those feelings and to avoid actually paying attention to what the body or any of our emotions might be, right? Whether that be numbing it with food or alcohol or drugs or, the internet or social media, whatever it is, to numb ourselves, to actually take that time to check in and really feel what's happening, the sensations in our body, yeah, that can be scary at first when you're not used to feeling those things. Have you always been good at that? Or what was there a pivotal moment when you kind of learned how to actually listen to the sensations in your body?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about because, and this goes back to where I have a really strong belief that and it could be because I spend so long like learning this, but I believe that one of the fastest ways to understand your intuition, or one of the easiest ways to start learning your intuition, is through food. And that is how I started cultivating mine. And I'll explain what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I used to believe I was not intuitive at all. Like clearly, like I was in my head a lot of my life. That's why I was researching nutrition till 3 a.m. Why I was an obese kid. I was super anxious. I used to always say, if you give me 2 options, I'll guess it wrong because I have no intuition. I didn't understand what that was. And so the pivotal point was when I hit that rock bottom. I could not think anymore about food. I was like, F this. And I started paying attention to how the food felt. And like, for me, what really helped me understand it was, I think, like I said, when I was eating meals, like I would start to note, oh, this is how I feel when I eat this. And then I would have the cellular memory to how that experience feels like when I eat this. Like I know I can imagine right now what it would feel like to eat pizza. I can imagine what it would taste like. I can imagine like what my belly would feel like at first, what it would feel like after 20 minutes, because I've eaten pizza so many times that I remember what the whole course of action feels like. And so that's what I think I told you I started to do is when I would start to eat food is I would imagine what it would feel like. And what that did, it started training me to pay attention to feelings and following the feelings through my body. And then the more I understood the feeling, like if I eat a lot of pizza, my stomach feels a little heavy. It feels a little meh. My taste buds are really happy, but I also feel kind of like weighed down sometimes after. And sometimes that feeling is worth it. Sometimes I'm like, I want that feeling. And so I just want to watch TV and be lazy. And I don't care if I feel heavy. And sometimes I'm like, I'm about to go on a hike. That's going to feel gross. And so it was learning to tap in with those feelings and learning to eat intuitively in that way. And then when you see that the result on the other end of you listening to that feeling is actually super positive and your health gets better and your weight stabilizes for long periods of time, you build a strong trust with yourself because you're like, oh my God, now I get it. I feel it through. I make my decision based on the feeling and my health hasn't gone to shit. Like I don't think about it anymore, but my health's actually improved a lot. And so it was learning to follow the feelings that then allowed me to apply it to other areas of my life. It's when I realized, oh, me using my intuition with food can then be applied to using my intuition with business. It can then be applied to me using my intuition with anything I decide to do, basically, because I understand what trying on a feeling feels like, and I practice tapping into my feelings. So yeah, I'd say it started with food.
Oh, I thought Karan was going to say something. I'm like, she's going to say something. I started to lean in.
Something profound. No.
Well, yeah, the intuition, learning that's huge. That's one thing for me. I would get lost all the time. It was a joke. My dad would tease me about constantly because I'd have to, he had bought me a phone. This is back in the days of prepaid cell phones. He bought me a prepaid plan so that I could call him because I could get lost on my school was a half hour away from my house drive-wise, but still I could get lost if I took something slightly different going on the way. I lacked that intuition and that tapping into what feels right or what have I learned in the past. And I was definitely living in my head a lot too. So you started with food. Is there anything you'd recommend for the listeners to start tapping into their intuition? Should they start with food? Is that an easy place, or what's a good way to tap into intuition?
So food might be an easy place. I believe it's an easier place if you also have some general nutrition knowledge where you're like, I obviously need fruit. I obviously need, like, I need to get protein, fat, like I need all of this. I think it's because I had that general background of knowledge too, that it made it even easier to think through how I was going to feel. Cause I think of the different components of the meals. I think about how each component's going to make me feel. So I do believe food can be a way to start, even without knowing all of it. It could literally just be even starting a journal and being like, oh, I ate pizza today and this is how I felt after, or I ate this meal today and this is how I felt after. But I would say a general way to start tapping into your intuition is noticing, first, I truly believe that anything that you want is your intuition telling you can have it. Like I actually believe manifestation is driven by your intuition, already knowing you can have it. Like you're not just it's not like if I say I want a red pony, it's like I can't just write about it and it just show up, because that doesn't feel right to me. I don't actually want that. I'm not actually going to get a red pony. Like I believe manifestation is a combination of intuition and like knowing what you want. And what I've learned even more so through intuitive eating and intuitive living is what you want, it like you're meant to have it. And so my first thing is to, if you think you want something, head in that direction. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but head in that direction. And then while you're heading there, notice if your body is expanding where you feel open and peaceful around something, or if it's contracting, if it feels like, I feel like I should do it. This feels meh. Like I'll even give an example for my next retreat. Kim, I was talking to Kim and she's like, if you want to sell it really quickly, you should probably just make it intuitive eating focused and like say it's an intuitive eating retreat and blah, blah, blah. And when she said that, I was like, well, maybe she's right. Like I should do that because that's like what I started out as, and like people would sign up really quickly and blah, blah, blah. But when I felt it in my body, I was like, no, I don't want to go back to that. It was more so just like my head being like, you should do that, mm-hmm. And it was this like, feeling. My mind was trying to convince me. But like when I think about just like not doing that, but instead thinking about it being my holistic Disneyland, my body like opens up and it's like, okay, like what else could I bring into this? And it's expansive feeling. So I would say it's focusing on the contraction and the shoulds versus, oh, I feel like expansive and I could do this and I could do that. And like, I feel peace. So I would say those two feelings mainly, but also if you want to follow how you feel eating certain foods, I think that's a good way to start on a daily basis, like a multiple times a day, start tapping into just feelings in your body.
Yeah. And part of that is, I don't think we ask ourselves what we actually want, what we truly want, or take the time to figure out what we truly want. Like you said, we have a whole bunch of ideas of what we should be doing or what we should want. And I really like, the pirate way of giving ourselves permission to really delve into what it is that you truly want. And you're right, that would come with that feeling, that intuition, that expansive feeling. Like I remember last year during COVID, and we were in lockdown, and I was working from home at a corporate job and part-time coaching. And although I know now it was premature, we were making return to work plans, returning to the office, which still hasn't happened here. But man, that was my body yelling at me. That wasn't even a hint anymore. That was like the hell knows in my body. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Don't want to go back. Don't even want to do it at home. Right. And knowing that coaching was a hell yes feeling. Like, this is what I'm driving towards and what I really want. And, we've talked before on this podcast or on the show about, we taking action and waiting for the right moment, or if I have this much money or have this much clients or whatever that right moment is to like make a switch. And it was the worst moment. It was the gym was closed. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and yet it really was all about how I felt that drove that decision. It was no longer in my head, because if I was following my head, then that was a terrible thing to do. But by following the body and the sensations of what those options laid out for me, it was really an easy decision to make, versus something that I've been, wrestling with for years of, well, when am I going to do this full time? And so I really love how you talk about like checking in with your body and really allowing those feelings or those sensations, because I think they start by whispering, and by the end they're yelling, they're throwing bricks at you. and you have to listen at some point, right?
100%. Like I remember when I look back on it now, like I can hear what my intuition in previous relationships before I was in the relationship with my boyfriend now. Like I had several long-term relationships that the majority, probably like the last year of the relationships, I was bad at breaking up with people, was you need to get out of this relationship. You don't love them. It's not long-term. And in my head being like, but it's comfy, but it's fun. And like, when I think back to those screaming moments, I'm like, that was my intuition too. And one thing I really realized is like, people talk about finding flow. People talk about like finding that ease and flow in your life. And the thing I've realized for following my intuition, because it is what you want, is that life really can be so, so easy when you follow what you want, because the life force energy is there to back it up, because you're so excited about it. You have this unlimited store of energy to get whatever you want, like in your possession. Whereas if you're doing something that you don't like, there's only so much energy you're going to be able to get yourself to move forward.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, where can our listeners go to find out more about you and about the Goddess Retreats and everything that you're doing?
You can check me out on my Instagram. It's Rachel_Varitimos, which Varitimos is, I'm sure that'll be in the show notes or whatever. Just spell it. I was like, and then in my bio on Instagram is the link to my next retreat. So if you're curious about what we're going to be doing, where it's going to be, what the dates are, that's where all the information is.
Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then what would you recommend our listeners do to go about starting their own pirate life and taking small, bold actions?
Write a list of everything you've ever wanted to do, and then pick one thing, say it to yourself every day, and figure out a way to do it.
I like it.
And we have one more very important question for you. Do you know any pirate jokes?
Oh gosh. Shoot. No, I don't know any pirate jokes.
Don't worry.
What?
We are prepared.
Oh, thank God. I was like, no.
So, what kind of grades did the pirate get in school?
R?
High C's.
That's a good one. I like that one. Thank you for that.
We like to end on a joke.
I love it.
And thank you so much for talking with us today. And we're looking forward to, learning more about the Goddess Getaway for September, right? That's when you're having it?
Yes, September 19th to the 23rd in Sedona, Arizona.
Nice. So, thank you so much for chatting with us today. We had a lot of fun.
You too. I always do. Thanks for having me.